Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of Better Builder. We are super excited to bring you real conversations with successful builders around New Zealand and Australia. If you find this valuable or enjoyable or entertaining, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us build the community. And I hope you enjoy our very first episode we have today with Nathan Reynolds from Fortified Construction. What is success to you?
I think it was a learn to love it experience.
And there's always pitfalls that you can fall in, but then you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
Number one thing if you're struggling is to catch up with people about it.
Yeah, man. Welcome to Better Builder podcast. Thanks for coming on. It's been
Thank you.
It's been a long time coming. How long has it been since I've been like, hey, we're going to do this podcast? You should
Over a
come on.
year, I reckon.
The reason I wanted to have you on, obviously, we did some work together in the past with my company, and you guys have had some big changes and transitions happening.
You want to know about the changes that we've sort of gone through over the last little bit?
let's go back. Let's start from the beginning a little bit. I'm kind of interested in how, like, you builders are like a very interesting species to me, and I love how you guys
Builders or us in particular?
I mean, but all the builders I work with for different reasons are like fascinating to me.
Okay.
From the guys that, like, you know, yesterday I was on a shoot and there was like just filming all these guys that were like working for a boss, and they have like a interest, like they're all kind of similar in the way that they approach things. They kind of have an individualistic mindset, but then they still have to work within a team.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like I kind of loved it. Like the team environment's always a little bit slightly hostile, slightly fun, a lot of camaraderie, but also like if you have thin skin, you're probably not going to last.
Sure.
You know, I don't know if you what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting environment for sure. I mean, I think the landscape's changed a little bit from my personal experience. When I came up as an apprentice, there was a time where there was the very old school builder, and he was really rough around the edges, and the way he would speak to you and treat you was pretty poor, I would say. Like, you'd go home feeling pretty rubbish about yourself most of the time. I think that landscape's starting to change. I think it's changing from probably people that grew up in that environment and not wanting to repeat the cycle. So it's not the way I want our team to be. So and thankfully we've got some lads that are more respectful towards at least the younger boys in the group, and just wanting to build people up rather than sort of tear people down, I suppose. But there is a lot of ego involved in there, and it is a fine balance between, you know, someone who's young and wanting to prove themselves, and then some of the older boys that think they know everything, and, you know, they're still getting introduced to new ideas, and it's a humbling experience, I guess. And if the boys are willing to know that they don't know it all, or believe that they don't know it all, I think it can be quite a positive environment. Yeah.
It's been very interesting because I've been in the industry probably maybe like 3 years now, you know, just coming in not as a builder but sort of from the side.
Yeah.
And it's been fascinating for me to kind of watch it. Let's dive a little bit, let's go back even further. I'm interested in you particular here now, because I want to know sort of how you got into building and then how you got into starting your business, because those are two very different things, right? Being a builder and running a building business.
Yeah.
So what was your upbringing like? Sort of what kind of guy were you in at school, and, you know, what was your vibe back then?
When I was in primary school, I was quite outspoken. I was full of energy and very, I don't know, just out the gate. I actually was really into acting and stage performance. That was sort of my goal as a younger kid. Became really introverted in high school. Didn't really enjoy that transition there. For whatever reason, it was quite a challenge for me. But I guess in saying that, I sort of lost my dreams and aspirations of getting into acting, for example, and to, you know, wanting to try different things. I was quite good with my hands. I was good at all the tech sort of things, where it was cooking or sewing or woodworking or metalwork. So that was sort of an encouragement. We sort of get drawn to things that we're good at, right? So, but it did help that my I had some family members that were builders, my uncle especially, who sort of encouraged me quite a lot. My old man was always renovating the house and all that sort of thing. So I was always around a renovation. I was not more than 5 meters away from a hammer most of my life. So that probably helped push me in that direction. And then coming out of high school, I had a few people in my life that were encouraging me to get into a trade. And I think it was, sort of the natural progression to sort of start giving it a go. And, I didn't feel like I was losing anything. I was getting paid to learn a new skill, so sort of fell into it. And I think it was a learn to love it experience rather than a I absolutely love this from the get-go situation. Yeah.
I guess there's so many challenges and things you don't know, and it's like the learning curve is so huge, right, in building, that at the start you probably feel like lost. You just feel like a bit of like a I know nothing kind of.
100%.
Yeah.
And I don't think you get much opportunity as an apprentice, like you'll be digging holes in the rain and doing, cleaning up the building site, things that seem like quite like hard labor and like they're not actually sending you anywhere. But then you realize soon after that there's a lot of stuff that you're picking up just from observing how the building site's going and that progression. If you're with a good company or a good builder, which I was, it was awesome to be able to get those little opportunities as you progress further and further down the line. And that's sort of how that's why I say I learned to love it, because it did take some time to actually get through all the rubbish jobs and get to some of these nice juicy jobs of, even something as awesome as cutting timber, which seems pretty page one, but it's, learning how to respect a dangerous tool and all those sorts of things was something that didn't happen on my first day on the job. But it was awesome to develop into these things and see where I was headed, looking at some of the older boys the men who were, building houses and knew all this amazing information and problem-solving abilities. So I think, you sort of see where you're headed, and that was the encouraging part of it, being like, oh, I want to be able to do that. Yeah.
So tell me, take yourself back to like the first day that you were like, came on site as an apprentice. What was that like? You remember?
Yeah, it's a challenging one, because I was doing a few bits and pieces, with family members, like I was doing bits and bobs. So I'd had a penny on before. But my first day, it was on a big house on the shore, a massive mansion. I was working for two guys, just a real small company. It was just the two of them and myself. It was definitely a little bit overwhelming, like learning a completely different set of skills, learning how to interact with two people that I didn't really know at all when I started with them. So it was more of as a lot of jobs are, it's more of a learning how you fit into a space. Even if you're given a task, it's still very people related when you're having to ask questions about what to do or how to do things and how this particular person wants things done. It's quite a exercise in being a bit of a people person, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think that was what my first day was like. It was just navigating the human interaction as much as the physical element of it.
Yeah, it's almost like, just kind of navigating the environment that you now have to work within, and who are the players, who do you have to listen to, and how do they like things done?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you said when you observed on that shoot,
Yeah.
It's just seeing how people interact and like the hierarchy and the egos and this person arguing with this person and how you need to appease this person maybe. Yeah, I think from the get-go, that was one thing I noticed as being a big part of being in the trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why then go and start a building business? It seems like a lot of hassle.
I mean, you're saying that at a pretty prudent time. Like the last 12 months especially have been pretty hard.
Yep.
I've had the company just about 7 years now. So it's a good question as to why I decided to start a company. I met my business partner, Julian, just over 7 years ago, and he was still doing his apprenticeship, actually. He was doing an adult apprenticeship. He was a bit older than me, and he sort of had this idea of, why not, let's, jump in the deep end and start a company. I had run little jobs for myself. I'd been qualified for a wee while at that stage. I'd been off traveling for a while, so my mind was very open to suggestion. I think it was open for new possibilities, new challenges, and certainly at the time, all those years ago, it was. It didn't have an expectation of the company being anything more than a couple of guys swinging hammers, having a good time, and having the flexibility to be able to ideally take days off when we wanted to and go on holiday when we wanted to. And obviously that did happen back then, but slowly became something that turned into a bit of a monster. We've got quite a few guys working for us now. It's turned into a completely different an exciting company, but obviously with that, as you say, it comes with a hell of a lot of pressure, a hell of a lot of responsibility, including, just making sure that you've got, I think we've got 15 guys in the residential company that we've got to make sure we've got food on the table for their families or paying their mortgage or their rent or whatever. That sometimes can keep you up at night, I suppose, but I don't know. I think there's some type of a thrill in it still. The thing that is driving me forwards in it is the thrill of being able to have a little bit more of a say, a little bit more of an input into people's lives when they ask us to come and build their dream home or renovate their current home that they are raising their children in. And I was just at a place this morning, that's why I was late for this podcast. Someone was just so excited about creating their dream space for themselves, and they've got a little son and one on the way, and they're just wanting to create this beautiful space. And I get so enthused and so excited to be able to help be a part of that journey. Yeah. And I think having a team that I trust and really want to help create this beautiful thing as a group, as a collective, I think that's the thing that keeps me in it, keeps me in this seemingly sometimes, quite stressful and hostile environment, I suppose. Yeah.
We're all inundated, we're all online, we're all on Instagram and TikTok and all that sort of stuff, right? And I feel like we're sometimes inundated with like success porn, you know what I mean? And like motivation, messages and get a 5 a.m. club and that sort of, stuff that's going around. So, what would you then say, what is success to you? And I guess if you ask someone in the 80s, they would just be like, stacks on stacks on stacks. But what would motivate, what is success to you?
I guess, again, this is a question being asked, in January of 2024, where things have definitely taken different shapes and forms in my life. At one stage, it would have been success. Definitely would have been being able to earn a certain amount of money. That's definitely changed into being able to maybe provide for a group of people. I feel like for a long, long time, that's been a huge motivation for me to be able to try to create a family or a work environment where it's so wholesome and everyone enjoys their time working for us. I think that is still a huge driver, but I guess even more recently than that, just over this Christmas break, it's been a reevaluation of the personal comfort that I've been able to find and being able to go home and feel a sense of ease. Yeah. I haven't been able to feel that as much as of late. Just the pressure build up, the enormity of what we do on a day-to-day basis sometimes can just start to become overwhelming. Those moments, those evenings, those weekends where I just feel this great sense of ease wash over me from a job well done or a week well done, or feeling like everything's come together with a particular staff member that might have been having a hard time but now feels easeful, or a particular client who was feeling upset about something that didn't quite work out the way they wanted to, but it was able to be appeased. That sort of thing helps in the feeling of success. And I know those are outside factors, and there's a lot of things that I end up doing for myself to find that ease within myself. Meditation, I'm a huge fan of it. Yoga as well. Those things are just practices to help me feel more at ease. But when I nail it, which isn't always, but when I do nail it and I can feel restful, truly able to switch off and relax and know that everything's okay, that's when I feel true success. Yeah.
It's hard when you look externally, for any of those aspects of ease or peace or validation. Any whenever you look outside of yourself for any of those aspects, you're so vulnerable, right? Because you're really at the mercy, and not in a good way necessarily, because you're kind of at the mercy of the outside world and who makes you feel good. Or
that's right.
And if someone can make you feel good, they can make you feel bad. So you're absolutely right. Like looking inside, it has to be found within yourself, right? So how do you cultivate what you say ease, whatever that looks like to you? How do you cultivate that inside of you? I mean, you mentioned meditation and yoga. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It is a little bit strange. I fully admit that there aren't a huge amount of builders that sort of would click with the idea of doing those sorts of things. I do know a few builders that are into yoga and what have you, and I'm certainly
they might surprise you. There might be way more that.
I mean, definitely. I'm keen to hear the response from this, but I am really keen to get more people into it, just from the benefits that I've found within myself of doing it. But yes, just a regular practice of essentially mindfulness, and it can be anything, like having a distraction-free time where you're not on your phone or in front of a telly or whatever. I know those things can feel really restful sometimes and get us into a state of mind that feels more like lulling us into a sense of ease. But just having a time, going for a walk or a run or a whatever, I find that as important as sitting down in a meditation traditional sort of shape, which we've all seen on telly or what have you. I've found that spending a certain amount of time per day, as much as I can carve out, usually in the morning, it's 20 minutes in the morning, as much as I can, 10 minutes if I've got to rush off to go for a run or teach a class or whatever. But I find just having little snippets of time that are just for me, not thinking and worrying about anything else in the day, it's not always possible. Sometimes your mind's just the whole time you're sitting there just starting to get the wheels turning on the day that's about to happen and what have you. But just having some time where you've even got the opportunity to do that, I think is really valuable, carving out that space.
So you have like other things going on, so you're like you're a owner of a very successful building company with your partner, Julian. But you have other things that you do, like you've got your yoga that you teach, and you're involved in other things. Do you feel like that adds to the overall success of you and the company, or do you feel like it takes away sometimes? Like, would you, there are obviously builders out there, they're very focused, and there's definitely a lot of benefit in being single-minded and focusing on building a business.
Thing. Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on having other things to kind of, take your mind off it, or do you think that can be a distraction as well?
Another good question, Brad. You're full of them today.
Mate.
Yeah, there have been times where I've questioned whether it is an energy suck to do other things. As you say, I do teach yoga. I teach 4 classes a week at the moment, and have done for the last year or so. Before that, it was only 2 classes, which was obviously a little bit more manageable. For personal success, I think most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, having some sort of outlet. When I teach, a lot of the styles I teach very restorative, very meditative. So there is time for contemplation, even being the teacher. I've got that time. I'm bringing people into a sense of ease within their mind, within their bodies. And that rubs off on me. I need to be in a sense of ease and tranquility within my body and my mind to be able to teach that effectively. So it's kind of been in some way, it's been a important aspect of my life to be able to hold me accountable, I suppose, for snippets of my week. Even just during those 4 classes, I let go of everything. I'm not thinking about jobs. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm super focused on what I'm doing. And that has helped to balance me out during a stressful week. It breaks up my day. I teach 2 classes on a Sunday and 2 classes on a Wednesday. My one's on a Wednesday. It's the perfect sort of snippet in the middle of a week where things can just be starting to ramp up. And what I'm doing in class is as much for me as it is for my students, and finding this space of just being able to melt everything back down into a sense of ease, especially if their week has just gotten away on them and their mind is just in a million places. So yes, I do find for the most part, teaching has always been this place of just accountability for me to find my own equilibrium amongst the madness of running a company.
Yeah. Something like 55 tradies like took themselves out last year, which is crazy. Why do you think that is? If you're looking at, you've been in the industry for a while now.
Is suicide or?
Yeah.
It is a tough environment. It's one of those things where I feel it's quite close to my heart, and something that I would really like to do more of is sort of checking in with the mental well-being of our guys, and I do all I can. I mean, we're all struggling with our own mental well-being as well as in our own personal lives, let alone being business owners and what have you. So I do think that the industry has, for whatever reason, got higher statistics than other industries. One of the most important things is what we talked about at the start was just the working culture. When I grew up, like I said, some of the guys I was working around were really rude and would be quite mean and say things that were quite hurtful. And I think, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but certainly in New Zealand there's this harden up culture of just toughen up. You got to grow thick skin in this culture and all these sorts of things. And I think some of that is definitely, it's true that you have to. I mean, that's how things are. But I think we can be a lot more kind to one another when we are working, and this is how we're hoping to drive our business forward with the way that boys are talked to and treated on site. So guys don't go home feeling like rubbish for making a mistake or whatever it is, showing up late. I mean, everyone's balancing their own personal lives and what they've got going on. So I would say it's probably just a combination of being alive in this moment in time with all the stresses that have come through, the pandemic, coming out the other side of that, with this recession that seems to be a very soft recession, but it's still ticking along, where people have uncertainty about their work. They don't know where the next job is going to come from, and that can add a huge amount of pressure to them. And if they're going into an environment where they don't really feel like they can express themselves without someone making some snidey remark about being soft or what have you, I think it can be really damaging. So it's kind of like how they say how you start, how you start is how you finish, and I just coming from the outside in, I've noticed, because I've come from a university background, right? So when you're at university, you go to uni, you do a week, you make friends, you go to class together, you study together, you even do assignments together. And there's ways for people to socialize together. And then after you leave uni, there's like groups, young professional groups, and you hang out and you have Friday beers and you exchange notes. And it's very much like a together mentality. And you go work at a company and there's other people that are on your level and you can, sort of suffer together and all that sort of thing. Where with building, it's very different to that, where you just go, you're an apprentice. Generally, you're the only apprentice on site. You get treated like absolute shit, right? Why? Because the guys above you, when they were apprentices, they were treated like absolute shit. So it's just like a vicious cycle.
And so then you're like, I can't wait to get qualified. And when I'm getting qualified, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
And then the guys get qualified, and then what do? They go out on their own, and that's sort of a double meaning because they go out on their own and they isolated. Now they have this small building business. They might get 1 or 2 or 3 guys working under them. Now they're isolated. They're not used to asking for advice. They don't know how to do it. Yeah. And I feel like the isolation, it's just from my perspective, the isolation has been like the biggest factor, or one of the biggest factors, I believe, in builders feeling like they don't know where to turn, and when they feel like they're drowning, at that moment it's too late because they've never reached out to anyone to ask a question around, hey, how do you deal with this issue or that issue, or you know what I mean? So
not having good mentors to be able to lean on.
Exactly, yeah. And so, if there was a way to facilitate, even on even what you're doing with, taking ownership as a director with your guys to have an environment where people can share ideas or ask questions, or if they're struggling in certain aspects. Because once you get to a point where you want to take yourself out, that's way further down the line. There's so much you could do leading up to that, you know what I mean? So, and even other ways where builders could just come together, even if it's directors. I know there's some other countries, like in Australia, there's a setup called Build Up, where sort of 10 builders in an area come together on a monthly basis, and they run through a schedule of things that they discuss, and they help share ideas and help solve problems. And it could be as simple as, help me with my health and safety plan on this big site, or it could be a bit more complicated, like I've got people suing me, what do I do? So I think builders being less isolated and more, being more open to sharing ideas and not sort of try to hold everything to themselves, I think it'll be much better for the industry as a whole. Not sure what you think about that.
Yeah, definitely. We have noticed that. It's interesting you say that. It brought someone to mind, a builder who we took on briefly as he wanted to start his own gig, exactly as you've said. He worked for a pretty hard bastard for a while, and he was like, yep, I want to start my own gig. He worked for us for a little bit to just, fill in time where he didn't have solid jobs for himself. And we wanted to help him out as much as we possibly could. We said, mate, we'll sit down for a coffee anytime you want. We'll help you, learn how to use Xero or learn how to price a job or whatever. We're not experts, but we've been in the game long enough and been successful enough to just give our 2 cents. But there was a massive hesitancy to want anything at all from us, which we found fascinating. It was just sticking it out by yourself, being, almost like a badge of honor to not want any support from anyone around you. And I do find that quite sad. I think, as you say, if there was a platform or a culture that we could start in New Zealand where builders could work together and not feel like they were in this massive competitive, hostile environment where we have to fight with each other for jobs or what have you. Certainly for the last, I don't know how many years, there's never needed to be that. There's enough work for everyone, in my opinion. So, I think that would be super helpful. Yeah.
Do you think some of that comes from like a scarcity kind of mindset? Maybe like, I don't want to, I don't, you know what I mean? It's kind of like there's not enough to go around type of mentality. And
I think so.
I just got to grab what's mine, where there's so much work out there. The pie's big enough. If everyone helped each other, everyone will rising tides lift all ships, right?
I think so, yeah. I'm a big fan of that, eh? Like we've actually, one of our reps who used to work for Placemakers, he's now at Mitre 10 now, big scandal, but he's a really good guy, and he brings people together as often as he can to have just a catch up, and it'll be a bunch of builders, and we'll just chat about whatever, just as you say, but very, very casual.
Yep.
But the amount of insights that we've gotten, just little tidbits, little bits of information, little bits of advice, little bits of inspiration that we've been able to get off other builders, it's fascinating. And we sit around, have a beer or a glass of water or whatever it is, and just have a really good, honest chat about what's going on, how we're feeling about things. A business partnership might have broken up here, or something's happened here, and it's just fascinating to hear everyone's stories and know that we're, one, not alone, and two, that most of the stuff we're going through is probably a commonly felt and experienced issue.
Yeah, for sure.
I think if there was more of that, that would make a huge difference in the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever struggle to kind of keep it together, like mentally, emotionally? And if so, what sort of helps to kind of snap you out of that?
Yeah, there's a few things that I do. One of the sort of most, I would say, long-term valuable things that I've done for a long, long time is just gone to see a therapist. A lot of us shy away from the thought of it. We think we've got to be a crazy person, or we've got to be suicidal, or we've got to have some pretty serious stuff going on in our lives to be able to even think about the possibility of going to chat to a professional about it. We have these excuses like, oh, I talk to my mates about that, or I can talk to my missus, she's pretty understanding. But seeing someone that's a complete third-party observer who has trained their whole life to be able to help you navigate through some tough stuff, I've found super valuable. And it's been a weekly occurrence for me for the last 5 years or so.
Awesome.
And I've found that hugely valuable. And there have been moments in my life where it seems superfluous to needs and I feel like I'm on top of the world, and other times where it is massive leaps and bounds and my personal understanding of what's going on week to week. So that's been a huge part of it. Being able to write down my thoughts has been huge as well. I've got stacks and stacks of diaries over the years of just things that have been on my mind that I've needed to get out on paper, and it's just been this release from here to getting it on a bit of paper and starting to make some sense of it, or even just taking the power out of those thoughts if they feel particularly overwhelming.
Yeah.
Those two things are probably the biggest and most effective, other than, moving my body physically outside of work, walking, running, yoga, whatever it is, and, sitting down and being still. I think, those other two have been massively helpful in helping me get through those really tough times, which I'll be honest, I've been through very recently, and I'm still, clawing my way through, not feeling absolutely fantastic every morning when you wake up. But it's a journey, and I know that there are, just waves that you go through in life, and being able to navigate those and have open conversations about them. I'm open with my boys at work and express to them and make them feel normal and feel comfortable, and being able to talk about things going on for them, and normalize things like going to therapy, and normalize things like writing down your feelings, or even wanting to dive a little bit deeper into things. I go on so many courses and read so many books about how to better myself as a human being and understand this thing here and what that human experience can be like, and has been like for people that have been able to find a sense of ease and comfort and just living, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there's a lot of research out there that backs what you're saying, even about writing. Obviously, talking to someone, going and seeing it is always beneficial, and a professional. But even writing things down can be, because sometimes thoughts are just like bullshit ideas. Right?
Yeah.
And not good ones, a lot of the time. And so just writing it down is almost just like it just gets out of your head, and you can like almost objectively look at it on a piece of paper, and then it just sort of like it loses, like you say, it loses all its power. Yeah. What are some, for people out there that may be interested, what are some tools, podcasts, or, books or anything like that you've sort of partaken in that could be helpful for people to kind of get their mind right, or anything you can think of?
Oh, there's hundreds. I might grab my phone to give some inspiration.
Yeah. I think it's always good to share these things, because sometimes because I've so many times I listen to podcasts, or I hear people say books, and then boom, I just write in my notes, and then 6 months later I see it again, and then I read the book, and then it's like super helpful. So I think I think people might find that beneficial for sure.
Yeah. One of the more recent ones that I read, which was I do a lot of audiobooks, which I
Yeah.
find really helpful.
I do
you know?
only audiobooks, so I don't read.
Yeah. But if you can handle podcasts, you can handle audiobooks,
Yeah.
in my opinion. The Courage to Be Disliked
Cool.
is really good. It stepped into Adlerian psychology, so just a different form of psychology, which I'd never really stepped into much before
What does
or
that
learned
mean?
anything about. So it was different to, Freud or any of these other ones where it was very like, oh, if you had some trauma in your life, that's why you're fucked up today.
Right.
And rah-de-rah, and very blaming of your past experiences for how and why you are the way you are, and it kind of excuses some behaviors in today's day, and has like an excuse for staying exactly as you are.
Yeah.
Adlerian psychology just gives you another perspective. I won't go too much into it, but
Right. As it
it
sort
really
of touches more on the taking accountability and moving forward rather than looking back.
That's right.
Right.
Allowing yourself to be essentially able to change the way you perceive certain experiences and things that have happened in your past and the things that are happening in your present and future. So,
What else have you got for us?
what else? Definitely one that comes to mind as I get down here was Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. That was just a fantastic book to understand ways that we can communicate with each other that can cut through all of the nonsense that we might get confused about, whether it's with our partners at home or, in a business role where you've got a disgruntled employee or contractor who's upset about something, being able to cut through the facade of what might be really going on. They might be saying something about a light switch being in the wrong place, and what really is going on is they're feeling, unheard from all these other things that have been going on, and
Right.
they're not feeling respected or whatever it is. And this can come in with clients and everything like that. It's just a fantastic book to be able to navigate tricky scenarios, I suppose, but I found it all encompassing for every part of my life. There were little things in that book that just helped me become, I think, a better leader and a better person. Highly recommend.
Couple more, just so
Okay.
the folks at home can.
One other one is, I talk about it all the time. A lot of people giggle if they know me and hear me say it, but Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep.
Yep.
I think one of the easiest ways you can help make life a little bit easier for yourself is get a very good and strict sleeping routine. Cutting out all the other stuff that you could do for yourself and all the diets and all that sort of thing that could come secondary to just having a really good sleep pattern. That book goes into great detail on a lot of sleep myths that we've been taught growing up, and gone to prove some fantastic things about sleep that a lot of the time we might not know about. And I think, it was because I talk about it so much, I think it might be one of the most important things that I've read and had to put into practice for myself.
Yeah. What have you seen in terms? You've talked to a lot of builders. What are some traits that you have noticed that you see in successful builders versus, and I'm talking about business operators here, and non-successful business operators? Are there any sort of traits that have sort of stood out to you that has been noticeable and that you've tried to implement yourself?
Yeah. You can be a fantastic carpenter. You can be the most amazing, immaculate perfectionist when it comes to putting, whatever it is together. But I think it is probably more important with personability. Your ability to be able to approach a client, if it's through word of mouth, which a lot of jobs in New Zealand are coming from, or if it's from advertising, you're still going to have that first client-facing meeting where you've got to go chat to someone, and that ability to be able to be personable with someone, be able to open up, be honest, be forthcoming about your abilities, your, maybe even your being honest about what you can't achieve, and saying how you're going to go to the nth degree for that person. I think, having the ability to be able to open up and do that is I've found super vital in being able to build that trust with the client. I mean, you're asking, someone for $1 million in some cases, for 200 grand, or even 10 grand for a little, deck extension or whatever it is. Like, that's a lot of money for anyone, in any capacity. And I think that has to come from a rapport and a trust that needs to be built. So if you have that ability to be able to be personable with your potential client, as a huge leap in the right direction. I think that's been one thing that I've noticed with a lot of successful building companies, is they're just really nice guys and girls to be chatting with, and you're like, oh, I'd want to hang out with that person.
Yeah.
And they're doing very well in their trade because they've been able to be open and communicative. And I know that might not be something that everyone is naturally able to do. It might be a case of you might feel like you're shy or not outgoing. I'm quite shy. I'm not very outgoing, but when I'm one-on-one with someone, it's just about being open and honest and having eye contact and being able to just express yourself as openly and honestly as you can, and being able to say, hey, this is my first job. I've just started up a company,
almost like that
really
authenticity.
appreciate that. Yeah. And they can see through a facade of bravado, I think, when people are being dishonest or overselling themselves or what have you, and you're not doing anyone any favors, because if you mess up, you could cost someone a lot of money or end up everyone feeling disappointed in what's been achieved. So I think that personability is definitely the most integral part of it.
Okay. So you've touched on that. So advice, someone's thinking now that they're a good builder. They've maybe run, maybe been this foreman or site manager, whatever. They've kind of run a few sites, and they're thinking, I'm going to go out on my own and start my own company. What advice do you have for them sort of in those first early stages of transitioning?
An important thing would be, like, if you were coming from just being a qualified carpenter, obviously there's a lot of things. There's so many things that you're yet to learn. If you've just gotten your ticket, that's basically the beginning of the road. I tell all of our boys that are about to finish, I'm like, we're just going to start with like the learning, we put them in the hot seat of being a foreman and what have you. And if you have been a foreman on a job, still then you're only about halfway to learning all of the knowledge and all the things behind the scenes that need to happen.
Yeah.
So one of the most valuable things, if you can, from wherever you can get it, is find a mentor. I had a really great mentor that took me through my whole apprenticeship and was super kind and advising me on things like pricing, on things like how to run your business, how much money you should leave in the company, for the financial ups and downs that happen, like all of these little things that can be overseen or not thought about, were super vital in the beginning of starting a company, for us at least. And I think having someone there, like some sort of a mentor that's been down that road, whether they've been down it for 2 years or 20 years, I think just someone or a collective of people that you can ask little questions about, like a community like we talked about before, just going and getting involved and chatting to people, is you learn so much, and humbling yourself that and remembering that you don't know everything, and there's so much more that you can explore and learn, and we're still learning as well. Like we've been in the game for a while now, and we're doing okay from the outside perspective. But every time we go see another building company that's the same size of us or 10 times the size of us, we're always picking up all these little gems of how to run our business better. And I think just that eager curiosity and that drive needs to come from, it needs to be all encompassing. It's not just about getting a job from Harry down the road and building his deck or renovating his bathroom and then calling it a day. It's about, being really, really clever about learning all aspects of your financing and being able to price something where you actually make a profit, or knowing how much to charge yourself out per hour, or being able to stay competitive in a market, and all these sorts of things are, I think, an ongoing learning thing. And if you've got that hunger for wanting to be excellent in your field and excellent in your one-man band or your two-man band or however many people you're wanting to grow into, I think finding that advice and just never stopping that learning experience is probably what I would say for any young, medium, or old person trying to get into the game. Yeah,
I know. People always assume it's the craftsmanship and the detail and And that sort of goes without saying, but it's if they could just be like a sponge and take as much on board. I mean, I know even with, I'm involved with a building business. We've been for a little while, but when you start, you have this like false sense of confidence that you're just like, don't worry, guys, I got this. Like, just hold my beer, watch this, you know. And it doesn't take very long for you to just get like crushed down real quick and be like, okay,
very
like,
humbled.
I don't know anything. And just to learn from people. And like you say, just that authenticity of like, just being honest where you're at and not trying to, fake it till you make it or be someone, pretend you're further along than you are.
Yeah.
I think people appreciate that, especially in New Zealand, maybe in America or whatever, it's maybe different. But especially here, if people can be honest with where they're at and with the client, like you say, being personable, that makes a big difference, eh? What's some of the lowest hanging fruit out there for builders going on? Maybe they've just going out on their own or they've been out there for a while. What's some low hanging fruit that builders, small building companies aren't taking advantage of out there, do you believe?
As far as within the company that they're running, or
like in terms of generating new work.
I mean, our work with Grow, with you guys, was we did see massive, like even in a downturn of a market, having like putting money back into your business, as you say, but putting it into marketing and advertising, something that we've never done a huge amount of. We did letterbox drops. We went door to door. Like actually, we walked down the street, putting our business card and a little note.
Like a politician.
Yep. And that worked really well in the early days. And don't get me wrong, it's still a fantastic way to do things. And I would encourage any young builder to even walk down his own street with a few handmade cards or what have you. It was hugely successful. We actually got our biggest job at the time. It was about 10 times bigger than our previous job from just doing a letterbox drop. So there was a lot of value in that. Obviously, the work that we did with Grow boosted our awareness, which is another thing. Like if people don't know about you, they're never going to use you. Obviously, you can only go so far with word of mouth. So getting yourself out there, chatting to more people in whatever environment it is, and this is why, I don't know, even being in a yoga studio as a student or a teacher has been fantastic to meet new people, but whatever your environment is, whether you play social grade soccer or touch rugby or whatever it is, or you go to a church and you meet people there, whatever it is, I think you can always find contacts there and just being open to just chatting about what you do and who you are. I think people, as you say, in New Zealand are just wanting to give people a go, I think as long as you're forthcoming about what you're doing and who you are and where your limitations are and how enthusiastic you are, you can go a long way. But yeah, just driving that awareness has been a big thing, getting some sort of, I know we live in a digital age now, so some sort of social media platform we've found pretty valuable, even for our clients that we've already got and had for years. They love seeing our posts and our updates on little things about both our team and the projects that we're on. So yeah, I think some really small things that are, relatively inexpensive, especially if you're just running your social media account yourself and you're just putting little posts up every now and then and what have you, can be a really easy way to just build that awareness and continue growing without breaking the bank or,
yeah, for sure. How have you found it changing your online presence and just, I guess, making yourself a bit more desirable digitally? How did you find the transition from sort of the old look versus the new look and putting yourself out there in terms of how people perceived you, even old clients?
It's interesting how many people noticed, like even friends and family and past clients and what have you were like, oh, you've updated your logo, you've updated your website and everything's looking pretty sharp. And there were a lot of comments straight off the bat of upping that level of professionalism. There's always a threshold, I think, when we were starting, we didn't feel very professional. Like our view of ourselves was like, oh, we're just a couple of boys just, doing our thing. And as time's gone on, we've realized some value in being able to feel a bit more polished, feel a bit more accountable for how we present to the world. Excuse me. So I definitely feel like it has had a positive effect. and has upped our game on a back end perspective as well. You know, if we are presenting this more refined, polished atmosphere to our clients and to the world at large, I think it's just naturally had this rubbing off effect on the way we orchestrate ourselves in our back end. So, you know, even getting an office, getting some more people to help us out, we started to see little holes in the way we were doing things. And I guess it was just an accountability circle of just being like, oh, okay, this is something that we want to do better at now, that maybe we've got more attention, we've got more people asking us for work. Our systems need to change a little bit. We need to get better at responding to emails, or we need to go out to sites and, you know, we want to change the way our uniform looks, for example, or just little incremental changes have kind of naturally taken place out of looking a little bit more polished and professional on the way we present ourselves, I suppose.
How about networking with architects? Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, definitely. So it's actually one of the little hacks. We're still working on it, you know. I think working with architects is an ongoing thing. You're just as you build trust in a new client, a new potential client, you've got to build trust with an architect. If an architect holds themselves to a certain standard and they want jobs run in a particular way, they want to be able to work alongside you easily. It's a big job for a lot of architects to feel comfortable to work with another builder, you know, and there'll be some architects that just absolutely adore the builders that they work with and they just want to stay with those guys, and there might be some that had a bad experience with their builders and are looking for new ones. So having, you know, just getting yourself in front of architects has been a big, for us anyway, has been a huge way to drum up a lot of our work. Even if it's, you know, one job a year or one job every couple of years, you know, some of the architecturally designed houses or projects are certainly bigger than other ones you would find, you know, potentially in other forms of advertising. Just getting in front of architects, building those relationships, those friendships essentially, because you're going to be on the phone to them. If it's some funky architectural design, you might be on the phone to them 4 times a week or 4 times a day, you know. It just building that rapport with someone and someone that they know that they can trust you to be able to get the job done, and you're not going to be a pain in their ass and they're not going to be a pain in yours. I think it's one of those, I think, simple and easy ways to have a reliable sort of source of potential work.
I have some rapid fire questions I'm going to take you through, and then we're going to finish up.
Yep.
So I think it's been really good. Thanks so much for coming on. If some of them, if you just want to pass, you can just pass as well. But just so people can get a better understanding of you guys. So how big is your team?
About 15 guys.
What's the breakdown of qualified versus non-qualified in your team?
At the moment, I think we have 3 apprentices and the rest are qualified.
Awesome. What was your turnover last year? Under 1 mil, 1 to 3 mil, 3 to 5 mil, 5 to 10 mil, 10 to 20 mil?
3 to 5.
What's the lowest gross margin builders should be aiming for?
Ooh. Probably 15%.
Free quote or paid quote?
Circumstantial.
Project management software or spreadsheets?
Spreadsheets.
Ute or van?
Van.
Rock or house music?
Ooh, rock.
Surprising. Are you extrovert or introvert?
Introvert.
Are you too mean or too nice to your staff?
Too nice.
Favorite business or non-business book you've ever read or listened to?
Oh, probably Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
Who is your business or life hero at the moment?
Ooh, life hero. Oh, business hero, probably Mark Nichols from QDC Works.
Perfect. What's your favorite hobby?
Running.
What's one thing no one knows about you?
No one. Oh. I had a smoothie for breakfast.
Nice. Smooth. Are you an alpha or beta?
Ooh, I think I'm an omega.
Oh, okay. Wine or whiskey?
Wine.
Makita or DeWalt?
Makita.
Hippie or jock?
Hippie.
Glass half empty or glass half full?
Glass half full.
Do you think more about the past or do you think more about the future?
Past.
Live fast and die young or live slow and die old?
I mean, in reality, live fast, die young.
Would you rather have a hero existence but forgotten or an average existence but remembered forever?
Ooh, maybe a hero existence.
What is one thing you should definitely not do as an apprentice starting?
Be disrespectful to your boss.
That's it.
Cool.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, that was cool, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, man. I really
Sweet as.
appreciate that. It's our first pod, so I hope it wasn't too clunky for the people at home, but I had fun.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Give
cool,
us some
man.
feedback. Constructive.
I'll definitely have you on next, and tell Julian I'll have him on soon as well, so
Sweet.
it should be fun.
Sounds
Thanks, man.
good. Thanks, bro.
Awesome.